I just want to get your take with the doping controversy. Have you seen an incident like this? Like historically, does anything come to mind that resembled what went down with Jannik here?
No, I mean Vilas. You mentioned Vilas earlier. He got fined heavily. I'm trying to remember if he was actually suspended, but he was definitely fined. Might have been suspended for guarantees. Back before guarantees were legal, because when the ATP started in '90, took over the tour, they legalized the guarantees. Until then, we all knew they were going on, but it was not legal. It was not permitted. I remember that with Vilas, and I just remember him coming out of it just fine. But I can't think of an instance like this where a player had this hanging over him, then that kind of an announcement right before a major, which I think it's remarkable. I remember thinking at the time, my God, he's got people like Kyrgios and Shapovalov popping off, and maybe not even knowing all the facts, and not many guys really came to his defense. They weren't necessarily blasting him, but he didn't have a chorus of people coming to his defense. I thought it must have been very hard and hurtful for him to get that kind of reception after the announcement. And the fact was, if they would have just informed the public soon after the testing and just said he'd tested positive, and let us know what the process was going to be, I think Sinner would have been so much better off not having to carry all that around with him. So, but I'm just saying, in light of the fact that it only came out just after Cincinnati, that he could step up like this, and after a shaky first set of the first round, play pretty darn well the rest of the way, I think it's a credit to him.
Yeah. Well, I think there's some resentment. Well, first of all, I agree with you that the players probably largely weren't thorough enough at seeking out the facts, especially because, some of this stuff is a little bit, I don't know, heavy to try to ingest in terms of all the information that's out there. So I definitely agree with that. I also think there's some overall resentment with the system and how it's gone down, with so
Yes.
many players feeling wronged.
Yes, that's true. That is true. And Djokovic brought that up, and it's absolutely true. On the other hand, it's not Sinner's fault.
Yeah.
And the notion that he got away with, I don't really think his case can be compared to Sharapova or Halep. I think they're all different. And in his case, I mean, yes, they at least penalized him to, with that prize money and ranking points of Indian Wells. And it was a little humiliating for him to have that news come out, probably a relief at the same time. But yeah. I don't think the player, I would hope the players, when they let it fully, they were all preoccupied with the Open. But I hope as they think down the road here and think about him and his reputation, realize that you can't, however it was handled, he had no control over that. And also the other point, Gill, is that some people said, well, but the top players, they can afford lawyers. What if this happened to him much? That's true, but it's also true that the lesser ranked players, maybe they can't afford coaches either. That's just one of the rewards you reap for being a top player. But I don't think it makes it. Again, I don't know how you hold that over him. He still had to go through the process. It was still an ordeal for him. And my main point being that he came in here, and that's a lot of baggage, and he somehow was able to. The Italian guys were telling me over the course of the term, the Italian writers who knew him, that he seemed to be improving. His state of mind was improving almost match by match. He was trying to sort of put it aside and just play. And he did a terrific job of that.
Yeah. And he addressed it and he took it head on. He was never taking, an adversarial position with folks who wanted to ask questions about it. And I think that's also admirable. Like, I think there are other players who have been embroiled in controversies who have said, well, how dare you even ask me about this? And Jannik was the exact opposite. He was very happy to speak on it. And I think that was a big help for him. And I admired that aspect of it as well.
I couldn't agree more. And that was true in the pre-tournament press conference. And it was also true after he won the title.
Yeah.
No resentment at all to any questions asked. None. No defensiveness, which also, you know, I'm not a psychologist, but it tells me that, there's something about how he handled it that reinforces to me that he was not guilty, and not to mention the small trace amounts of this substance. They were so small that they all agreed that it wouldn't have done him any. Somebody really trying to gain an advantage would not have. It wouldn't have been that minute an amount. So that's another reason to, I think, believe him. So be it. I just like the way. I like the way he responded.